Joining us right now is Georgia Republican Congressman John Kingston. Congressman, thank you for coming on. You know, you'll be our in-house spotter right now. And tell us about Republican control for 2 more years. Is it your hunch they're going to go to probes and more Darrell Issa stuff? Or maybe have a sit-down with the president, figure what can you do on trade, what can you do on infrastructure, what you can do on tax reform? There are areas, they don't agree on much, but there are areas where they can agree on a growth agenda for the country. I think both sides believe in economic growth. Okay. I'm sorry, we have to hold off for you. Let's go to Senator McConnell.
They've put their trust and confidence in me for a long time, and I want to thank them tonight. I work hard to bring your concerns to Washington, and I will not let up. You know, every election is a job interview. In this case, a very long one. I shared my vision with you. You shared your stories and your concerns with me. And yet one complaint has stood out above all the rest, especially in recent weeks. So I'd like to make an announcement that I think will be very welcome news to many of you. No more campaign commercials. The TV executives may not like it, but enough is enough, right? A little while ago, I spoke with my opponent. Secretary Grimes ran a spirited campaign. She earned a lot of votes, and she earned my respect. It took a lot of guts to take on a race like this. Because of the business we're in, it also meant she'd take some heat. I admire her willingness to step into the arena and fight as hard as she did. We need more people who are willing to do that, not fewer. She deserves a lot of credit for it. This was certainly a hard-fought contest. And I've been so proud to have my wife beside me every step of the way. You know, Elaine told me early on she wasn't ready to have me sitting around the house working on my resume. And she's gone above and beyond to prevent that. She's been the most valuable player on our team, and I'm so blessed to have her in my life and by my side. And to my campaign manager, Josh Holmes, my friends, he pitched a perfect game. Thank you, Josh. Of course, there's so many others.
I'm sorry to interrupt here just for a moment, but we have just had polls close in the state of Arkansas, and we do have 2 calls to make. In the Arkansas Senate race, NBC News can project that the winner of the Arkansas Senate race is Tom Cotton. This is a Republican gain. Democratic incumbent Mark Pryor losing his Senate seat in Arkansas to Congressman Tom Cotton. NBC News also in Arkansas can project at this hour that the winner of the Arkansas governor's race is Asa Hutchinson, Republican congressman who's run for statewide office in Arkansas several times before, never won before. But this is a big win for the Republicans in that governor's race in Arkansas. That's a pickup at the governor's level. That is also a pickup at the Senate level. Now back to Mitch McConnell in his victory speech in Kentucky.
Around the world. From my mom, I learned the value of perseverance and got an enduring lesson as she helped me overcome a frightening bout with polio as a child. In many ways, my folks were just like any other parents of their generation. They were optimists. They believed in America. Without a trace of cynicism, they transmitted the central promise of this country on to me, the promise that every generation will leave the next one a little better off than the one before. This is the compact that every generation of Americans has made with the one that followed it. And through civil war and depressions and world wars and strife, we've always made good on it. But as I've traveled through Kentucky over the past year, I've sensed new doubts. Suddenly, folks aren't so sure that that compact will survive if we continue down the road that we've been on. They're hungry for new leadership. They want a reason to be hopeful. Above all, they want some reassurance that people who run the government are actually on their side. So tonight, I pledge you this. Whether you're a coal miner in eastern Kentucky who can't find work, or a mom in Paducah who doesn't understand why the government just took away her family's health insurance, I've heard your concerns. I've made them my own. You will be heard in Washington. And look, when you get right down to it, that's what this campaign was really all about. It wasn't about me or my opponent. It was about a government that people no longer trust to carry out its most basic duties, to keep them safe, to protect the border, to provide dignified and quality care for our veterans. A government that can't be trusted to do the basic things because it's too busy focusing on things it shouldn't be focused on at all. A government that's too busy imposing its view of the world on people who don't share that view. Too many in Washington have forgotten that their job is to serve. So tomorrow, the papers will say, I won this race. But the truth is, tonight we begin another one that's far more important than mine. And that's the race to turn this country around. To restore hope and confidence and optimism to this Commonwealth and across this nation of ours. Some things don't change after tonight. I don't expect the president to wake up tomorrow and view the world any differently than he did when he woke up this morning. He knows I won't either. But look, we do have an obligation to work together on issues where we can agree. I think we have a duty to do that. Just because we have a two-party system doesn't mean we have to be in perpetual conflict. I think I've shown that to be true at critical times in the past. I hope the president gives me the chance to show it again. There's so much that we can and should do for the good of all Americans. Kentuckians are tired of a government that only seems to work when it is working against them. And they're also tired of hearing that those of us who fight for them in Washington are somehow the problem. I'm so honored to have Dr. Noel Hunter with me tonight. You've all gotten an opportunity to get to know her. What an extraordinary woman. Dr. Hunter was determined to get her daughter back. Against all odds, she did it. She did it. And when all was said and done, she achieved something else that a lot of people said was even more remarkable. She made me seem more warm and cuddly.
Mitch McConnell, the Republican leader in the United States Senate, with his charm turned up to stun, giving his victory speech tonight after he defeated Allison Lundergan Grimes in that Kentucky Senate race. A lot of people talking about him as being an unpersonable and unintelligent guy. That was Mitch McConnell at his best. in terms of the way that he presents himself to the public. Just to briefly summarize where we're at right now, Republican Mitch McConnell holding on to his seat in Kentucky is, of course, huge news. Democrat Mark Pryor in Arkansas just moments ago losing his Senate seat, also very big news. Right now, in terms of the races that have not yet been called, North Carolina and Virginia Senate races, both are considered too close to call by NBC News, and the New Hampshire and Georgia Senate races are both considered too early to call. So we're keeping an eye on that. A lot of moving pieces still happening right now in the United States Senate, and that's even before you get to the governor's races.
Yeah, I just want to say about Mitch McConnell, he's an exemplar of the fact that politics is a profession. And whatever you think of him, he knows how the game is played. He plays it professionally. He gave a very good victory speech there. He said very good things about his opponent. It was a rough campaign, but he gave her respect. He said, she has grown in my respect. He said all the right. He knows how to do this thing. And it's called politics, and it is a profession. It is not for amateurs. And when somebody loses, they better come back as more professional. Let's go to Jack Kingston, who went through a tough primary fight this year down in Georgia. Congressman, thank you for joining us, as always. And I want to ask you about the House. Now that your party's been projected to win control again next year, what does that mean to the American people? I listened to Mitch there, the Senate Majority Leader, probably, possibly, plausibly. And he was basically saying, I'm going to stay at odds with the president, but we will find areas of common ground. Give us hope tonight. What are the areas of common ground between the conservatives who are apparently going to dominate Congress next year and this center-left president? Some people might say left, I say center-left president. What do they have in common?
You know, Chris, I think they both want jobs. They both want a strong national security. And we can debate, you know, how do you do it? Which regulations do you change? How do you tweak one thing or the other? Do you repeal Obamacare, or do you just go into part of the pricing mechanism for it? Or, you know, what are the right balances? But I can say that under the banner of jobs and national security, there will be things accomplished. If you think back of Clinton losing both the House and the Senate, and Newt Gingrich coming together with Bill Clinton and saying, you know, remember, he famously said in his State of the Union, the era of big government is over, which was a way to hold out, I think, an olive branch. And I think that both sides could probably take a step in the right direction, and we can get some things done.
What will your party give?
You know, I was reading a comment by Rob Portman, and he said if we could get the Keystone Pipeline, maybe we can do something on carbon tax credits. Now, I don't know what he really meant by that, but it was a step to say we can find something that the Democrats want in exchange for something that we need. But I think the overwhelming theme has to be, well, what's best for America? And so, you know, but again, we have been here before. I think what the presumed majority leader of the Senate, Mr. McConnell, was just saying was a majority leader's type speech. As you said, I'm going to keep my philosophical bearings, but there will be things that we can get together on, and I think the American people will be ready for that.
Okay, thank you, Congressman Jack Kingston. He's been on the program and be on again. Thanks so much for joining us from Georgia.
I'm sorry to jump in here for a second, but we do have another call to make in an important governor's race. This has been a fascinating one to watch in New Hampshire. New Hampshire not only has a very tight Senate race, this governor's race was fascinating to watch, but NBC News is now projecting that Governor Maggie Hassan, the Democratic incumbent in New Hampshire, has held on to her seat there. We saw multiple trips there, trips up to New Hampshire by the Republican Governors Association Chair Chris Christie, both trying to boost the prospects for Walt Havenstein, but also, of course, I think because at this time in his life he likes going to New Hampshire. At this point, the New Hampshire Senate race, according to NBC News projections, is too early to call, even with that governor's race in New Hampshire being called. We're going to be back in just a moment with more news on New Hampshire and that key Senate race, and we'll be joined by NBC News' Tom Brokaw. Stay with us. We'll be right back.